Good day to all our viewers worldwide. It's April 1st, 2024. Yesterday, the Christian world celebrated Easter. First in our news, one of the country's former US Senator Joe Lieberman died last Wednesday at the age of 82. I'm Sam Buban. Welcome to this week's edition of The Pulse.
And I'm Joe Buban. Welcome to The Pulse.
A devoted public servant, a four-term U.S. Senator from Connecticut, and a man of history as the first Jewish American on a presidential ticket, a former Vice President Al Gore's running mate in 2000 election, Joe Lieberman died Wednesday afternoon in New York City at the age of 82. A statement from his family said that Lieberman's passing followed complications from a fall. According to NBC News reporter Kelly O'Donnell, Joe Lieberman's support of the Iraq War, being a hawk in defense, cost him among Democrats. Lieberman became an independent, later a founder of No Labels organization, and his friendship with John McCain was part of his break with the Democratic Party, but remained in caucus with the Democrats in many issues that needed legislation. His beloved wife Hadassah and members of his family were with him when he passed. Lieberman was the Democratic Party's vice presidential nominee in the 2000 election, which was won by Republican George W. Bush over Democrat Al Gore by a margin of only 537 votes in Florida when the Supreme Court stopped the recount and Al Gore conceded his defeat so that the nation can move on. Joe Lieberman failed in a bid for the 2004 Democratic presidential nomination, hurt by his support for the Iraq War. Joe was a man of deep integrity, where he devoted his life serving the American people and his country. He was truly a gifted leader, a loving father, and a husband whose strong personality will make him a force to contend with. That was the quote from his wife, and that's why it came to no surprise to any of us who knew him when he started singing his favorite song, Frank Sinatra's My Way. And by doing things Joe's way meant putting his country and values of equality and fairness first. That was Al Gore's statement. In a recent interview, Lieberman discussed the effort and how it, at times, felt like building a plane in midair and doing something that I think hasn't been done before. We are on the ground getting on the ballot and going to let a candidate emerge and take on the rest of us, Lieberman said, according to the same report.
Former Senator Joe Lieberman, who held a law degree from Yale Law School, was a member of the Connecticut State Senate and then Attorney General of Connecticut before becoming a U.S. Senator. Lieberman retired from the Senate in 2013 after 4 6-year terms. Lieberman's independent streak, and especially his needling of Democratic presidential nominee Barack Obama during the 2008 presidential contest, caused bitter resentment among many Democrats, the party he aligned in the Senate. Yet, his support for the LGBT community, rights, civil rights, abortion rights, and environmental causes at times won him the praise of many liberals over the years.
The Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore collapsed last week after a freight ship crashed into it, leaving 6 construction workers presumed dead after falling into the frigid water below. Investigation on the Baltimore Bridge Collapse picks up speed as divers recovered 2 bodies from the water. 8 construction men were on the bridge when the ship struck it, plunging them into the waters below. 2 of the workers were rescued on the day, but the search continues for the other 4 missing and are presumed dead. Divers also have found a pickup truck in the waters of Baltimore Harbor.
According to the NBC News reporter Tom Lamas, it took only seconds for the bridge to collapse, but investigation would seem likely to take more than a month or so due to the dangerous parts for divers to take even to enter the water. debris, sunken cars, containers, and chunks of bridge littering the river floor as search and rescue continues to see what's left of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Coming from where the collapse happened and at sea level view, the first thing you would ever realize is the enormous size of the cargo vessel who bumped into the bridge. It is so much more colossal than the structure of the actual bridge. Officials say Dali, the ship that bumped the bridge, is stable, but has more than 1.5 million of gallons of fuel and 56 containers of hazardous materials, but the Coast Guard saying that it is not a danger since the crew is cooperating with the investigation as they remain on board. However, investigators seem to encounter a problem outside the ship. The search and recovery efforts have been delayed by the weather in the Baltimore area, but the ship has been a steady ship. According to NBC News, they have learned that the divers have now located a red pickup truck submerged in 25 feet of water and recovered the 2 victims who were trapped inside. Officials say that the recovery mission in Baltimore has changed for a 3rd time in less than 2 days. Investigators have downloaded the data from the ship called Black Box, including the ship's speed position, power, and throttle settings at 1:30 a.m. Tuesday. The pilot of the cargo freighter that knocked down the Francis Scott Key Bridge into Baltimore Harbor had radioed for tugboat help and reported a power loss minutes earlier. Federal safety officials said on Wednesday, citing audio from the ship's black box data recorder.
The Biden administration, according to U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, will do everything as quickly as we possibly can to reopen the port of Baltimore, which she said was one of the most important in the United States. We are trying to evaluate now that what the impact may be on the bridge that is collapsed, Yellen said, adding that the supply chain task force set up to ease COVID-19 era port blockages that contributed to inflation would meet to review the latest information on the Baltimore port situation. A U.S. federal supply chain task force met on Wednesday to assess the Baltimore Bridge collapse incident and port closure, as Biden administration did not want financing concerns to hold up the bridge construction. We're monitoring this very closely and prepared to take steps that can be helpful, according to Yellen.
From Los Angeles, California, Hunter Biden had asked the U.S. District Judge Mark Scarsi at a hearing in a federal court in Los Angeles to dismiss his tax charges, claiming it is politically motivated. The president's son has pleaded not guilty to tax-related charges, arguing that prosecutors digging into political pressure from Republican lawmakers investigating incumbent President Joe Biden. Hunter Biden's lawyer went back to court in bid to toss the president's son's case, saying that this has been the Republican strategy to jeopardize the campaign of Joe Biden, as they repeatedly pinpointed to Hunter Biden, which is a major topic for Republicans in Capitol Hill. Hunter Biden's attorneys saying that this case would not have been brought against someone else only because he is the president's son is the reason why the case is being brought forward. Hunter Biden was not present during the arraignment. That is usually the outcome, especially when you have a special counsel who would have imagined a situation like this, as reiterated by Hunter's lawyer, saying that the judge's rule should be based on his view of the law, not based on prior cases.
The judge heard arguments on several motions filed in recent weeks from both of Biden's legal team and that of Special Counsel David Weiss' office, presented by lead prosecutor Leo Weiss. David Weiss was in attendance sitting in the first row in the courtroom. According to NBC News, the first motion centered on Biden's contention that an agreement that was part of an initial plea talks is still in effect and should protect him against the charges that were filed in California. The judge seemed skeptical and critical on some of Biden's argument, especially lawyer Abby Lowell's contention that the case should be dismissed on the ground Biden was a victim of selective targeting by prosecutors. The motion was brought about by prosecution staffer charges after complaints from the House Republicans that Biden was getting special treatment. There is really not enough evidence to support Biden's claims beyond the timing of the probe and charges. Lowell did not point out additional evidence to support the claim. The trial is due to start in June, a few months before Americans vote in November presidential election that looks set to be a close and deeply hostile contest between Joe Biden himself, the subject of an impeachment probe, and Donald Trump, who faces 4 criminal trials. Hunter Biden, the son of the incumbent president, also faces a separate criminal case in a federal court in Delaware over his alleged purchase of a handgun while he was using illegal drugs. He also pleaded not guilty and has raised similar arguments to dismiss the charges in that case. According to Reuters online news, Hunter Biden, who is 54, pleaded not guilty to failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes between 2016 and 2019, while spending millions of dollars on drugs, escorts, exotic cars, and other big-ticket items. Lawyer Abby Lowell has said he paid back the money in full. We are going to take a commercial break. Please stay tuned.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. Birmingham-Southern College, the nearly 170-year-old private college in Alabama, says it will close at the end of May 2024. This private liberal arts college will finally reach their last days of operation at the end of May after running into financial difficulties and being unable to secure a financial lifeline from the state, officials announced Tuesday. The school dates back to 1856 when Southern University was founded in Greensboro, Alabama. That school merged with Birmingham College in 1918 to become Birmingham-Southern, with a campus west of downtown Birmingham. The College Board of Trustees voted to unanimously close the longtime institution, officials said in a news release. The announcement came after legislation aimed at securing a taxpayer-backed loan for the 168-year-old private college, recently stalled in the Alabama state government. In a news article by the Associated Press, "This is a tragic day for the college, our students, employees, and our alumni," the Reverend Keith D. Thompson, chairman of the Board of Trustees, said in a statement from the college. "But it is also a terrible day for Birmingham, for the neighborhoods who have surrounded our campus for more than 100 years, and for Alabama." It was noted that after years of financial trouble, even after the last year scare, some students still never give up hope, as they are still expecting positive outcome, in a recent interview done by an NBC reporter. Last year, legislatures passed a bill that would allow the state treasurer to loan emergency funds to colleges suffering from financial distress. However, new legislation would have gone down a different path. The decision would close follows years of financial difficulties and efforts to keep the institution open. The college said the financial crash of 2009 caused the $25 million loss to the value of its endowment. An audit in 2010 uncovered significant accounting errors of the budgeting of federal student financial aid, which led to the budget cuts and layoffs. Moody's Investors Service, the rating company, downgraded the college's bonds after revenue declines caused the college to draw heavily upon its endowment. The private college had hoped to secure a financial lifeline from the state. The Alabama legislature created a loan program last year to provide financial help to distressed colleges, but State Treasurer Young Boozer denied the school's loan application. Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin said, "News of the closure is frustrating and heartbreaking to all of us who recognize it is a legacy of our community. I've stood alongside members of our city council to protect this institution and its proud advocacy of shaping leaders. It's gut-wrenching that those values were not shaped by lawmakers in Montgomery," Woodfin said Tuesday. Birmingham-Southern Provost Laura K. Stoltz said the college is working on agreements with other institutions to help students maximize the transfer of credits to keep them on track.
For our international news, according to BBC, a Tunisian court found 2 persons guilty and sentenced to life in prison, and 4 people also guilty in participating in the 2013 murder of a well-known political figure, Kokre Belaid. Outrage erupted when he was discovered shot dead in his car in Tunis. The Islamist Ennahda party, which was in power at the time, was harshly criticized by the socialist lawmaker. He said that it ignored the violence and radicals committed against secularists. Even though the worst offenses in Tunisia carry death penalties, no execution have taken place since 1990. Usually, they are commuted to life terms instead. 23 persons had been charged in relation to the murder of Belaid. Prosecutor Ayman Chitiba responded to 6 sentences that were handed down on Wednesday morning, saying justice has been done. After 15 hours of deliberation, the verdict was presented live on national television, according to the Associated Free Press news agency. 6 months later, the death of another left-wing opposition politician, Mohamed Brahimi, was also attributed to jihadists loyal to the Islamic State. 2 years after the pro-democracy Arab Spring rebellion started in Tunisia and expanded throughout the Maghreb and the Middle East, these killings incited protest by incensed Tunisians. Presently in charge of Tunisia is President Kais Saied, who has also been labeled as an autocrat following a string of power grabs that included dissolving parliament, dismissing the prime minister, and dissolving the nation's major legislative body.
From The Hague in the Netherlands, the United Nations top court has ordered Israel to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza by opening more crossing into Gaza to allow food, water, fuel, and essential supplies into the war-ravaged Gaza territory in Israel. The International Court of Justice, or the ICJ, issued the 2 new so-called provisional measures in a case brought by South Africa and now joined by Ireland, accusing Israel of genocide in its military campaign that was launched following the October 7 Hamas attack on a Jewish settlement near the Gaza border. In that attack, 1,271 Israelis died and 253 hostages were abducted by Hamas. But several are believed to have died from Israeli attacks, 2 of which were fired upon and killed by Israeli soldiers when they were running towards the soldiers to be rescued. The situation in Gaza continued to deteriorate, where the entire population is on the brink of famine, and that more than 14,000 children are believed to have died from injuries and the absence of medical care, as the healthcare system no longer exists. Israel had bombed and sieged multiple hospitals, including the largest and more modern hospital, the Al-Shifa Hospital, in the heart of Gaza. According to Doctors Without Borders, many of the hospital workers have been killed in the Israeli attacks, and many had simply fled to safety, as the relentless bombings and siege in Gaza included schools and hospitals. The Hamas Health Ministry had counted close to 31,000 dead Palestinians, and does not include those that are still buried under the rubbles. This is according to multiple media outlets, including Democracy Now! And the National Public Radio in the US. People from different countries around the world believes Israel is using famine as weapons of war, and no different than what the warlords in Somalia used. In another UN Security Council resolution late Thursday last week, the UN resolution called for a ceasefire in Gaza in a vote of 14-0. The resolution was passed after the United States abstained from voting. We will see if Israel will comply. We will take a short break. Please stay with us.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. The cryptocurrency trading genius and dubbed as the Crypto King and touted during the height of his fame as the next Warren Buffett was sentenced to 25 years in prison. US District Judge in New York Southern District, that is in Manhattan, sentenced the cryptocurrency mogul to 25 years in prison. That was less than half than what the probation officers recommended and less than a quarter than what the victim's lawyers calculated. Bankman-Fried, who was charged with stealing $8 billion from customers when he was the chairman of FTX cryptocurrency exchange. A New York jury last year found him guilty of stealing from unsuspecting customers to prop up his hedge fund, the Alameda Research, buy luxury properties, and fund political donations. In the chronological events leading to FTX downfall, Alameda Research, which was a hedge fund created by Bankman-Fried and Tara McCauley, in less than 3 months, Barbara Fried, co-founder of MTG PAC, with funds from FTX entities. And by 2019, the FTX Bahamas-based exchange was founded by Sam Bankman-Fried and Gary Wang. That same year, a whistleblower files a lawsuit against FTX, alleging cryptocurrency price manipulation, money laundering, operating an unlicensed money transfer business, and violations of the Commodity Exchange Act. It was in November 2nd, 2022, that a leaked Alameda financials show questionable ties with FTX and large FTX holdings in FTT token. 6 days later, the price of the FTT tokens dropped to $6. By November 11th, 2022, FTX, FTX US, and Alameda and more than 100 subsidiaries filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. People who had placed cryptocurrency they owned into the FTX exchange could not get their money. The money appears to have been siphoned out of the exchange. Prosecutors charged Bankman-Fried in a massive financial fraud and arrested him in the Bahamas and brought to New York, where he was tried and convicted by a jury.
Once again proven, the women's reproductive rights and the right to choose is still the winning issue for Democratic candidates since the U.S. Supreme Court reversed of Roe v. Wade that guaranteed the right to abortion in the United States. But since that unpopular action by the Supreme Court and state after state that are in Republican control enacted laws banning abortion, women had been fighting their own legislatures and their governors through the ballot during the 2022 elections and in dozens of special elections. A Democratic candidate running along that platform on freedom to choose and have the right to abortion has been getting elected against incumbent Republicans in their district. It happened again last week in a special election in a deep red, a very Republican district in Alabama, who has a total ban on abortion with no exception for rape or incest. Marilyn Lands, who campaigned on abortion rights in deeply conservative Alabama, won a special election for the Alabama legislature, described by Democrats as voters' backlash to extreme reproductive restrictions imposed by Republicans. Democrats see this win as a proof that reproductive rights is the winning issue in the 2024 election. Well, folks, we are out of time in this episode. We want to thank you for watching. I'm Joe Buban. See you next time.
And I'm Sam Buban. Thank you, and God bless your week.